Two teenage girls at Overberg High School would have an argument over a guy. This sounds like something that happens every day at every high school. But 2 days later, one of the girls would be found unalive, stuffed in a school closet, brutally stabbed, and the guy that they were arguing about, he would be the main suspect and he would stand trial for her murder. Today I'm talking about the case of Deveney Nel, and before we get into that, we need to talk about the alleged suspect in this case, Frank. Now, he is a minor. He was 17 when he allegedly committed the crime, and because of this he cannot be named, but in the media he has been referred to by the pseudonym of Frank, and that's what I'll be referring to him as well. Now, Frank is someone who I would call has a history of violence, which I'm going to go through briefly. We know that when he was in grade 3, he got into a physical altercation with a teacher, and the teacher allegedly tried to stop him from pushing a girl over a desk, and then Frank turned on the teacher. We know in that same year in grade 3 that he stabbed another pupil with a pen, and then in grade 5 he sat detention for getting into fights because he was being bullied, and then in grade 6 he punched another student. And this would go on to around 2020, when Frank was 13 years old, where he would commit his first alleged serious offense, and that would be the rape of an 11-year-old child. Now, Frank has never been found guilty for this offense. It is clear that the MPA is not going to prosecute it. So these are all allegations. So Frank has never been found guilty for any form of rape, but I'm going to be speaking briefly about the allegations that have come forward. We know that Frank was at Albertina camping site over Christmas 2020, along with an 11-year-old girl that he met at the camping site. And this was over Christmas holidays. It's a time where most kids look forward to. There's no school, it's Christmas is coming around the corner. And they were hanging out together, they were swimming, she had her brother, they were all sort of playing together. And we know that this 11-year-old child would accuse Frank of rape, and she would tell her mother, and the mother would get the police involved. Now, this is where things get a bit fuzzy about what actually happened in this case, because we know that Frank was interviewed and he was sent for a psychological evaluation, and in his psychological evaluation he said that I follow my own rules, I don't like being controlled, I love causing trouble. And we know that somehow this case fell between the cracks. The public prosecutor sent a letter to the Department of Social Development officer in Carri-Ann, where Frank is from, and asked the boy to be placed in a program for sexual offenders. The prosecutor says they never got a response, whereas the Office of Social Development says they never received the letter. We also know that there has been a lot of media coverage in this case about the magistrate, after the magistrate allegedly failed to recommend the case to Children's Court. All of the charges were withdrawn by the MPA in 2023. And this is a case that fell through the cracks, because we have to ask the question about maybe if Frank had received some sort of punishment for this alleged act, maybe Devene would still be alive. Devene was only 16 years old when she was brutally unalived, and we're going to get into the timeline of these events and how investigators, through some really good police work, zoned in on Frank as their main suspect. Devene, we know she got into that argument, or that other girl got into an argument with her over Frank a few days before she was unalived. And then the school was Overberg High School was having a sports day on the 7th of August 2024. And we know that there was no CCTV footage of the rugby field where the sports day was occurring, but people were taking videos on their phones of the match. And through these videos, police managed to piece together Frank's movements on that day. We know that he was a first aider, and he had access to the staff kitchen to get ice, and that he was also wearing his first aider jacket. Now, on the 7th of August 2024, we have him standing in the rugby field from 2:45 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And that rugby field is located opposite the netball courts, which are adjacent to school buildings. And Devene was last seen alive in this area. we know that at 4 p.m. Deveney vanishes. No one sees her after 4 p.m. And then at 4:05 p.m. Frank is seen in CCTV on cell phone footage walking away from the rugby field, and he returns at 4:23. So what was he doing in those 18 minutes? Well, police immediately became suspicious of him, even before they checked everyone's phones, because Frank was acting strangely at the crime scene. We know that Deveney was reported missing when she did not return home from school, and the school was searched, and she was found in that closet. And detectives say that when Deveney was found, Frank was almost hysterical. He wanted to be let in to see her because she was a first aider. And when probed about the argument that happened a few days before, Frank admitted that that argument had been about him. Now, detectives would zone in on Frank, and they knew that he was their main suspect. So at Deveney's memorial service, they filmed his facial expressions. He was seen at the back of the memorial service. He seemed lively. He was chatting. He didn't seem that sad to them that Deveney had just passed. And additionally, 3 different people placed Frank inside that building near the storage closet where Deveney was found. So we have 3 eyewitness accounts of him being in that area during that time. And after that, detectives went and interviewed him, and Frank allegedly confessed to detectives that he had unalived Deveney, and he, accompanied with his family, went to his house in Carri-Ann, where Frank allegedly handed over the murder weapon, that knife, to the police. Now, this case has been fraught in other legal issues since this has occurred. It's been about a year now, but this is expected to go to court soon in September 2025. Now, Frank has been put in a safe place of safety for children because he is 17. He is still 17, and he is still considered a minor.
The case against a 17-year-old boy accused of killing a grade 10 learner, Deveney Nel, back in the Carri-Ann Magistrates Court today. The teenager made his first court appearance last month, and those proceedings were held in camera due to his status as a minor. Nel was found dead in a storeroom at her school at the Overberg High School last month. Her mother had reported her missing after she failed to go back home following a school sports day event. Newsroom Africa's Nasipi Same is following the story for us and joins us now. Nasipi, this is such a heartbreaking and tragic story, especially when you consider the history. And there was an accusation of a 2020 rape incident that involves the accused right now. There are a couple of complications in the story, and also accountability from the Social Development Department as well, and action they might have taken out of those earlier proceedings. So just bring us up to speed today and what's expected to unfold in court.
Well, the matter remains in camera. Media is not allowed inside, and that will be, or rather we will hear the outcomes of today's proceedings from the spokesperson of the NPA here in the Western Cape, Eric Ntabazalile. And as you put it, 17-year-old once again makes his second court appearance at the Carri-Ann Magistrate Court, facing a charge of murder. And that relates to the incident that shook this community of Carri-Ann and the Overberg region, where on the 16th of August, 16-year-old Deveney Nel was not only reported missing by her mother, but later that evening, that very same evening, found deceased or dead inside a storeroom. We understand that she had suffered stab wounds. And about 2 days later, following a memorial service that was held by the school, limited to parents, pupils, including the staff, the 17-year-old was subsequently arrested following that memorial service. We also, understand that he was allegedly part of the group of people that had formalized and searched for Deveney Nel on the 16th of August. But, following that court appearance last month, a number of allegations came forward where it is alleged that in 2020, when he was about 14 years old, there was a sexual assault and rape case or charge against him. However, he was found not liable to commit that crime, looking at his age and also being protected in the Child Protection Act. We do know that many people calling for him to be trialed as an adult and for him to be named. However, because of that particular act, one needs to adhere to the laws of this country and not name him. Following the court appearance, he was put in a place of safety. And those investigations you speak of from the social development side, we understand that the department in the Western Cape is also investigating that, as we do know that following the 2020 allegations and charges, there needed to be an intervention from that department. But a number of people are also here outside the Carri-Ann court. I'm now joined by...
A lot of people were shocked about it because, I mean, it's a small town and a small school, so I guess so something like this shouldn't really, happen, but it shouldn't happen at all. But the people instantly got on everything. Everybody stood together and the community strived to find him. I knew him personally from school. The dude was a normal guy. He didn't really seem suspicious at all, if you would say it like that. I've known him for a long time, and it kind of shocked me. I think it shocked everybody. Yeah.
We believe that he will be tried as a minor. We know that when he is 18, that it's possible that he might be transferred to prison.
Gender-based violence organization 1 Billion Rising SA has called for the teenager arrested in connection with the 16-year-old Deveney Nel's murder to be tried as an adult. Nel was found dead in a storeroom at her school at the Overberg High School in Cape Town after her mother reported her missing. The 17-year-old murder suspect appeared at the Carri-Ann Magistrates Court briefly on Monday. The case has been postponed to September. So can a teenager or the teenage boy be tried as an adult? Let's now bring in the organization that is calling for this. That is 1 Billion Rising South Africa's organizer, Lucinda Evans, is part of the conversation, and also the director of the Center for Child Law, Karabo Oza, is also joining us for that conversation. A very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Let's start off with Lucinda. Lucinda, why are you making this call, considering that you have the Child Justice Act that is quite clear in how you deal with prosecutions relating to minors?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, we are making a call that the perpetrator, the murderer, be tried as an adult, because there is no constitutional protection for Deveney Nel or any other woman in this country that suffers gender-based violence or being killed.
Lucinda,
we should be teaching...
Okay. Sorry, we lost you there for a second. Yeah, we should be teaching?
Yeah, we should be teaching our sons that if a woman or a young girl says no, it means no. It doesn't mean that it gives them the right to kill them. And I completely understand the constitutional law and protection for the 17-year-old murderer. In fact, that he's now in a place of safety. We also understand that the law and the constitution is even going to allow him not even to get a harsh sentence. And so he might come back home to his parents. What about Deveney Nel's parents?
Thanks, Aldrin. I think, firstly, I must say that we all are worried about the rates of violence against women and children in the country, and more so when it's children perpetrating offenses against other children. So I think that must be clear up front. But what follows from that is that we cannot then say there should be a deviation from what the law says. And I must actually explain that what the law says does not hamper a fair process. So what the law says is that you're going to be tried, as you mentioned, Aldrin, under the Child Justice Act because you're a child. That gives you procedural protection. That means that your trial is done close court with the parents of the victim, with your parents or guardian, with all the court officials. That does not mean the outcome is soft. And I need to explain that. If a child is charged under the Child Justice Act for a serious crime and they are over 14, they can and may be sentenced to up to 25 years to prison. This case before the court now, the child accused is being charged for a murder. It's a Schedule 3 offense. for which he can get up to 25 years, which is actually a sentence that even adults get. So that does not diminish. It's still there. The issue of the trial taking place or him being tried as an adult, we don't have that in our law. For me, I would say the question would be, what does it achieve, and how do we then, we must remember, and that, I mean, it doesn't condone violence, but he is still an accused at the moment. There has to be procedural protections. Even adults enjoy that. We know that people's names are not revealed until they're charged. There are all sorts of protections. So I think we just need to understand whether the procedural protections affect the outcome. And my point at the moment would be that it doesn't, because it's a serious crime that is being charged with. If he is found guilty, the court can give him up to 25 years. We have children who are actually sitting in prison. And the Child Justice Act is very clear that if you're above 14, you may be sentenced to prison, not a child in prison, to prison for a serious crime.
Now, Frank was previously declared unfit to stand trial because of a lack of cognitive ability that would result in criminal culpability. But the psychologist in that case also noted that he has a violent history and is likely to commit violent acts in the future. We also know that he has since gone for another psychiatric exam, and now that he is fit to stand trial. And I will be keeping an eye on this case. If you like what I do, consider giving me a like, consider giving me a follow. And I also have a YouTube. I would appreciate it if you could support me by subscribing.